I'm grateful to be here today. And the theme for this month, overarchingly, generally, one of the containers that will fit our actions and thoughts into is covenant. So it occurs to me that we come together today not by accident, not even by habit. Though I know for some of you, your car does know the way. But we say these words each week. You said them carefully this morning, of your covenant, because they are the shape of your commitments to one another. As we begin to talk about what our commitments are as a community, and why they are, and how we do them, I want to begin with an allegory. It has the word God in it, but as you know, we aren't talking about a bearded elder in the sky with shiny robes. Rather, just now, take this as a myth, or a story that points to a truth that humanity holds in common. It's not a story that ends with an infomercial. It doesn't end with signing up for literature. It's another framework through which we can contemplate the world. Are you ready? All right. Before there was anything, there was God, a few angels, and a swirling gob of rocks with water and no place to go. The angels asked God, "Why don't you clean up this mess?" So God collected rocks from the huge swirling glob and put them together in clumps, and said, "Some of these clumps of rocks will be planets, and some will be stars, and some of these rocks will be rocks." Then God collected water from the huge swirling glob and put it together in pools of water and said, "Some of these pools of water will be oceans, and some will be clouds, and some of the water will be just water." Then the angels said, "Well, God, it's neater now, but is it finished?" And God answered, "Nope." So on some of the rocks, God placed growing things and creeping things and things that only God knows what they are. And when God had done all of this, the angels asked God, "Is the world finished now?" And God said, "Nope." God made a man and a woman from some of the water and stardust and said, "I'm tired now. Please finish up the world for me. Really, it's almost done." But the man and woman said, "We can't finish the world alone. You have the plans, and we are too little." "You are big enough," God answered them, "but I agree to this. If you keep trying to finish the world, I will be your partner." The man and the woman asked, "What's a partner?" And God answered, "A partner is someone you work with on a big thing that neither of you can do alone. If you have a partner, it means that you can never give up because your partner is depending on you. On the days you think I am not doing enough, and on the days I think you are not doing enough, even on those days, we are still partners. And we must not stop trying to finish the world. That's the deal." And they all agreed to that deal. Then the angels asked God, "Is the world finished yet?" And God answered, "I don't know. Go ask my partners." And what is that thing that you here partner to do? Well, according to your covenant, you commit to recognize, to gather, to seek, and to celebrate. Right there in print. There it is. But where did that method come from anyway? As Unitarian Universalists, our history with covenant goes way back. I'm going to tell you a story about that, but first, I want you to imagine a gallon of milk, or 5 gallons, or 10 gallons. 20 gallons is a noticeable pile. 10,000 gallons would fill a noticeable part of this room. Now imagine, not milk, but wine. Not for a party, but a voyage. You see, the roots of congregational covenant go all the way back to John Winthrop, who sailed a fleet of ships, including the Arabella, from England to Salem, Massachusetts, to found the Massachusetts Bay Colony. Do you remember that from school? The journey took them from April 5th to June 12th in the year 1630. And in those intervening weeks, the people on the ship drank all that wine. It might sound like a lot of booze, but in fact, it was just an alternative to water that would not make them sick. You probably heard that in school too, right? What was Winthrop's goal anyway? A very interesting one, actually. One that we talk a lot about, but have to really work at to fulfill. And you're going to have to be in suspense, because I need a drink of water. Thank you. Let me begin again. Now, the only way to avoid shipwreck and to provide for our posterity is to follow the counsel of Micah, to do justly, to love mercy, to walk humbly with our God. We must be willing to abridge ourselves of our superfluities. That's a good phrase, huh? For the supply of others' necessities. We must hold a familiar commerce together in all meekness, gentleness, patience, and liberality. We must delight in each other, make others' conditions our own, rejoice together, mourn together, labor and suffer together, always having before our eyes our commission and community in the work, our community as members of the same body. So shall we keep the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. And so, in a very important way, Winthrop was making a declaration of interdependence. And I have supported and challenged your practice of interdependence this year, and I will continue to do so, especially because the way you fulfill the potential of your covenant has everything to do with building new futures and healing ourselves and the world. In the face of alternative facts, private prison industry, and other things that challenge our values, returning to the beginning can help us remain steady on our journey. So it's important to remember that, because the strength of your being together has to do with the integrity of our word, both to one another and to the realities and aspirations of the Unitarian Universalist movement. So, a covenant is a promise, sure. It tells us who and what we are to one another. It has lots of layers, but it's important to remember that part of what you bring into the covenant is yourself. Not just your mental assent, though to be very clear, without your assent, any covenant would be incomplete. As you bring yourself, though, you bring the promise of who you are and how you mean to be. And sometimes, even though you work hard at them, you know that sometimes you break your promises. Jason Cook reminds us that a covenant is a promise made in love. A promise that we will move out of isolation to be part of something greater. Remember when Erin was telling the children's story and she reminded the children that they can't play tag alone? Do you remember? You also cannot be in community all by yourself. You cannot. That's not how it works. The sound of one hand clapping is an eternal mystery. It's useful, but it remains in that domain, right? So it's that togetherness to which you promise yourself. Lots of theology and meaning making from the last century focuses on paradigms of individual salvation. Today, my question to you is this. When you consider this township, this city, this state, or this country, how do you think this infatuation with individualism is working out? The covenant you hold, like invisible links between yourselves, calls you to more. And the work of being linked and staying linked begins with you, but it doesn't ever end there. When you go deep within yourself, you discover the questions about who you are that have to do with your relationships to other people. Who needs you? If you think the answer is nobody, you're in the middle of your long division problem. You haven't gotten to the end yet. Whose life depends on your love? Whose life is changed by your choices? Who are you connected to, and what will you do with these connections? Being in covenant calls us to hold on to hope, to remain connected to an even larger calling, to discover what it is we can do together to make a difference in the world, as others before us have done, because they openly and willingly followed that hope. You return to your covenant because it does something special. It keeps the knowledge of who you are from being lost. Lately, I've heard so many good reports about your reaching and growing into strong, healing ways of being a Unitarian Universalist in this time and place. You are strengthening your anti-oppressive lens, talking about the ways skin color in America today has benefits and disadvantages that don't take into account the undeniable and natural worth and dignity of each and every single human. There are ways that you act out the meaning of your promise, and these are they, and there are others. And you must not stop. The world may continue to confuse you and disappoint you. You have something to return to. Not just this building, although it's beautiful. Not just these people, even though they're great. But in addition, the promises that link you together. The promises and practices of covenant, making promises, keeping them, cleaning up mistakes when we break promises, remaking promises. These are the things that keep your practice of building community alive. James Luther Adams put it this way: I call that church free which in covenant with the divine community-forming power brings the individual, even the unacceptable, into a caring, trusting fellowship that protects and nourishes integrity and spiritual freedom. Its goal is the prophethood and priesthood of all believers, the one for the liberty of prophesying and the other for the ministry of healing. Have you seen a prophet in a movie? He might be wearing a dirty raincoat, have a bushy beard, and he's holding a sign. What does the sign say? The end is nigh. You have the same message to bring, but you're ending something. My father, my beloved dad, actually spends a fair amount of his time ending landmines in the world. He did 3 tours of duty in Vietnam, and so I think he took away as one of the things from that experience that landmines are one of the most destructive things that we can physically do to each other. My brother spends a lot of time eliminating fear for children and families who want to practice music. My mother spends a lot of time eliminating loneliness for mothers who have children with special needs. I'm just telling you about them because then I'm not picking favorites from you, right? But you know people like that. They're holding a sign that says the end of something is nigh. And they say what it is. For each of you, it's true that you're eliminating something in the world because you won't have any more of it. But also, Adams is pointing to the way that our work can heal the world. Right? And for each of you, some of you might say this, I'm not really a healer, but I want you to think. I want you to remember the last time somebody said a perfect word to you that understood the struggle that you're in and how that lifted your heart. I want you to remember the last time someone gave you a small gift, but it was super thoughtful and it lifted your burden. I want you to remember the last time someone made you laugh because they knew you needed it. All these tiny things, they're the things that we do for each other because we know each other, but they amount to that kind of healing. And there are more, right? Some of you actually do other intentional healing in community, like tutor children at disadvantaged schools, like work for people who have less resources than you do to show them the way or to augment the resources. All of that matters. And it points back to the promises that we make to ourselves and others of who will be in the world and why it matters. According to Reverend Angel Kyoto Williams, transcendent movements require people to organize around issues beyond what people perceive they are affected by. What does she mean by transcendent movements? She's lifting up the things that really matter for the long haul into the future. She's saying that if your movement is to matter, one thing it must do is become unselfish. To recognize that any limit in your ability to love limits your ability to receive love. One has to penetrate the truth of interdependence such that I am moved by the place in which I am not doing something for you, but it is actually about me, which is tied to you because there is, in an absolute sense, no separation. So if I can look on someone and see the thing that they need in the world, that moves me to action. This is what we know. We make promises to ourselves and others. Promises are made to us. That spirit of mutuality, along with the work that you do to make a better world, call you into covenant and back into covenant again and again. Let us be people of our word. Let us be the people of our work. I'm going to point to you. You're going to say, let's do this.
Let's do this.
Beautiful.